The inheritance from my father-in-law belongs to my husband since he's the eldest son.
Oh, lady, get out of the house, haha.
These heartless words were thrown at me, a woman grieving the loss of her husband, by my eldest son David with his wife Laura. My husband Kyle had always cared for David and Laura, yet to be treated this way, I just couldn't accept it. My husband's feelings, which were always considered for the sake of David and Laura, should not be dismissed so easily. I've reached my limit of patience. David and Laura, who only thinks of themselves, deserve divine retribution. I began to plan out to get revenge on them. I believed that both David and Laura, who disregarded our feelings, must see hell. Thus, my journey of revenge began. My name is Debbie, a housewife in her 70s. I live with my husband. We have a son, David, who left home to work after graduating from university, and now he has his own family. David and his wife, Laura, live nearby, considering our old age. My husband and I were thankful to the eldest son and his wife, and my husband was particularly fond of them. After my husband started investing in stocks and quit his office job, we became quite wealthy, allowing us to live a luxurious life. Our house is too big for just the two of us. We have a maid who comes regularly. Our future is secure, all thanks to my husband. I was deeply grateful to my husband, and just as he cherished them, I also valued David and Laura. However, that was a mistake. Initially, our relationship was good, but over time it deteriorated. Laura's attitude changed first. She started summoning me to their house under various pretexts, dumping household chores on me. For instance, because she had urgent matters to attend to, or because she was feeling ill. Using such reasons, she would call me over to do chores while she herself would go out with friends or relax on the living room sofa. You're really feeling ill, right? When I questioned Laura, who was laughing while watching TV, she frowned and said, "Mother-in-law, are you doubting what I say? That's like bullying your own daughter-in-law." Later that night, she reported to David about what had happened. When David returned, he was furious and scolded me.
I never thought my own mother could be such a person. My wife really admires you. Do you know how shocked she was by what you said?
Feeling it was unfair, but also feeling guilty, I could only apologize by saying, "I'm sorry." The eldest son and his wife seemed still angry, so to mend our relationship, I took them out for a delicious meal. They seemed pleased, saying, "It's good that you understand our feelings." However, this incident created a huge rift between us. Following this, the eldest son and his wife started demanding various things from me. Laura begged for a designer's brand bag, and David asked for expensive golf clubs so that he could hang out with his friends. Honestly, since I don't work, the money comes from my husband's earnings. I felt guilty using my husband's hard-earned money for such things, but he said,
"It's okay, buy it for them. We have the money."
So I gave in to their demands without much thought. Initially, David and his wife were thankful, but gradually their attitude changed, and they began to act as if it was their right to receive these gifts. Laura would say, "Mother-in-law, I want the new collection from this brand. You'll buy it for me again, right?" Annoyed by Laura, who seemed to think it was only natural for me to buy things for her, I couldn't help but say, "Why don't you buy it yourself once in a while? Money isn't infinite, you know. You're relying on my husband's money, so shouldn't you show some restraint and be humble with what you have?" To which Laura raised her voice in disbelief. "Huh? We're living nearby as a favor to you, so it's only natural you show some gratitude to us, right? I've been putting up with a mother-in-law like you who bullies her own daughter-in-law, and yet you have the audacity to act like this? I'll report this to my husband, you know." I clearly remembered that incident caused by Laura reporting to David previously, but at that moment I was too heated to back down and said, "If you want to report, then go ahead." Later that night, David and Laura visited our house, and the eldest son, red-faced, accused,
"Mom has bullied my wife again."
Since it was already time for my husband and I to be asleep, we suggested discussing it later, but they refused to leave and continued to scold me. Wanting to avoid further trouble and desperately needing sleep, I apologized just to get through the moment when Laura threatened, "If the same thing happens again, we'll cut ties with you." That woke both my husband and me up, and I couldn't help but ask, "Are you serious?" Laura confirmed, saying, "Yes, I'm serious. It's no joke. If there's another issue, we won't hesitate to sever any ties with you." And David nodded in agreement. Hearing such words from them, whom we had cherished, left us stunned. From that point on, our perception of David and Laura began to change. A few months later, the situation took a sudden turn. My husband fell ill and was hospitalized. I became busy with hospital visits and had no time to spare for David and his wife, who never once came to visit my husband despite knowing where he was hospitalized. It seemed heartless, but seeing my husband grow weaker each day, my concern for him surpassed any anger towards David and Laura, calming my emotions. After a long battle with illness, my husband passed away. Overwhelmed by grief, I could do nothing but proceed with the funeral preparations with the help of our family. My husband was well regarded. So many people attended the funeral, all mourning his loss. However, David and Laura were absent till the end. Since my husband's hospitalization, we hadn't seen them both, and they hadn't helped with the funeral preparations. Although I had sent them a message about the funeral, they read it, but did not show up. It would be a lie to say I wasn't furious at David and Laura for not attending the funeral after all my husband had done for them. However, I was too consumed with grief over my husband's death to confront them, and the funeral proceeded smoothly. Returning home after bidding farewell to my husband, I found David and Laura's shoes in the house. They had entered without my permission.
Finally, we got rid of that old man.
He was quite the nag, wasn't he? Hearing their conversation from the living room, I couldn't just let it go and confronted them. "What do you think you're doing? You didn't even attend the funeral." Their response was laughter, with Laura mockingly saying, "How scary," and David chuckling, clearly looking down on me. "Get to the point if you have one. I'm busy, you know," I said, only for them to laugh and say the unthinkable. "The inheritance from that old man belongs to my husband, who's the eldest son."
"Old lady, get out of the house."
I was stunned by their words, though I had anticipated the content. The audacity of David and Laura had pushed me to my limit. "Are you serious? Do you really mean what you're saying?" With smiles still on their faces, they nodded. Then David said,
"There's no point dwelling on someone who's no longer here. We're alive and need to think about the future."
Following that, Laura chimed in. "So, give us the inheritance already. He made quite a bit, didn't he? We'll take this house, too, and live a nice, carefree life. Great idea, right?" What a preposterous idea. Have they forgotten everything they've done? I was infuriated by the outrageous attitudes of David and Laura, wondering if they even considered how much pain their actions had caused us. What was the point of my husband's feelings? My husband, who deeply cared for them both, even during his hospital stays, longed to see them and would not rest easy because of how they acted. Irritated, I couldn't help but retort to Laura, "That doesn't sound like a good idea at all. You really are heartless. This way my husband won't be at peace." To which Laura, face flushed with anger, threatened, "What's with your attitude? Shouldn't you be grateful that we're even here? Now that your husband is gone, without us, you'll be all alone. Aren't you going to struggle without us?" Indeed, there was some truth to Laura's words. However, that didn't mean I had to cling on to them. If it meant being desperate to maintain a connection with people like them, I'd rather sever ties with the two and cherish my own life. That would probably make my husband happier. Thinking so, I firmly refused to agree to the inheritance. No matter how much they threatened me, I continued to assert, "I will not hand over the inheritance." Eventually, David lost his patience and claimed,
"As my father's son, I have the right to inherit. Ignoring that right is unforgivable."
Legally, David did have a right to inherit. Even if he couldn't receive the full amount as his wife wished, he had a right to a portion.
We don't care if we can't get the full amount, but once we get the inheritance, we're cutting all ties with you, so be prepared."
With those words, David and his wife left our home. And true to their declaration, they never showed their faces to me again. For me, the absence of the source of stress, which was them, was a relief. However, this peace didn't last long. 2 months into my quiet, peaceful life, I received a call from David, who had vowed to cut ties, saying,
About the inheritance."
He explained why he was calling, his voice laced with panic. Apparently, a few days after my husband's funeral, David and Laura had moved out, determined to sever ties with me fully, expecting a hefty inheritance and spending a significant amount on their new home comparable to mine. Assuming more inheritance would come, they had indulged in luxury over the past 2 months, depleting their savings. Yet no inheritance had arrived, leaving them financially insecure and prompting David to swallow his pride and inquire about the inheritance to me. Actually, there's a specific reason why David and Laura didn't receive the inheritance. I decided to explain this reason to him. Actually, my husband left a will. My husband, during his hospital stay, had made his wishes known about the distribution of his estate.
"If David and his wife visit even once when I'm hospitalized, they'll receive a share of the inheritance. If not, everything goes to my wife,"
he has stipulated. My husband wanted to believe in them until the end, hence this test. But they failed to meet his expectations, and as per the absolute terms of a will, they were entitled to nothing, since they never visited him. Explaining this, David exclaimed,
"I didn't know about this. Why didn't you tell us? If we knew, we would have visited him in the hospital."
Think about it. If I had told you, it would have defeated the purpose of my husband's test. That's why I kept silent.
"That's unfair. Give me the inheritance now."
Finally realizing the extent of their terrible actions, David shouted over the phone, exclaiming,
"That's just not right. We weren't told anything, so give us the inheritance. Without it, we're doomed."
Hearing my son's desperate attempts to secure the inheritance after such selfish behavior left me sighing in disbelief. How could it have gone so wrong that someone ends up repeatedly acting so heartlessly towards their own parents? Where did we go wrong? What did we do wrong? When and in what manner could we have acted to avoid a future where David grew into such a person like this? No matter how much I ponder, I find no answer. It's as if to say, once a mistake is made, it cannot be corrected. Perhaps we are also to blame for how he was raised. But we did our best, raising our only son with all the love we had. And yet, this is the result. My husband, who always cared for our son, why did it have to end like this? I can't accept this unreasonable reality, and my anger is directed towards my son and his wife. No matter how much you protest, I won't sway from my husband's wishes. He said if you didn't show your face while he was in the hospital, he didn't want you to inherit a single penny. So I intend to follow my husband's words and not distribute any inheritance to you. In a panicked tone, my son began to say,
"Wait, Mom. We're really in trouble without the inheritance. We're almost out of money. We can't even live like this. At this point, it's okay if we don't inherit. Can't you just help us out financially? We can't even secure tomorrow's meal."
I've reached my limit with my son saying things like this. Enough already. You were the ones who cut ties with us first, and now you're turning to me for help? Have you forgotten what you've done? My anger made me raise my voice, but I couldn't bear it otherwise. My husband believed in the bond of family more than anyone until the end. He wanted to protect his family and cherish David and I as family members. Yet his end was miserable because of David and Laura. During his hospital stay, he frequently mentioned wanting to see them.
"I want to see their faces."
He says so many times, which I conveyed to them. Yet they never visited him. It's unforgivable that they didn't even show up for his funeral. They didn't mourn his departure, but were quick to claim their rightful inheritance. The entitlement of my son, along with the profound sadness of their actions, infuriated me. What was the worth of our feelings? Were we wrong to think we could do anything for them, to be grateful for them? I miss the times when we could come together as a family, when we purely thought of supporting each other. Those days won't return, nor do I want them to." Overwhelmed by my words, David fell silent until the phone was taken by his wife.
"I've been listening to the conversation. We apologize for not visiting your husband and we're truly in trouble. Sorry for saying we'd disown you, but please help us a little. We're desperate here. Without you, we're struggling to live. Please don't abandon us."
Her desperate plea might have moved me in the past, but now, filled with aversion towards them, I couldn't respond. Laura pleaded.
"Please, we're really struggling. Aren't we family? We apologize for moving away without telling you. If it's okay with you, can we live with you in your house? We'd happily take care of you. Please help us. Don't abandon us."
What does "don't abandon us" mean? They abandoned us long ago. When they found themselves in that situation, they started pleading, "Don't abandon us." It seemed so selfish to me, and I couldn't help but sigh. Can you please stop? It's time to stop thinking only about yourselves. Do you realize how much you've betrayed us? Despite everything, we tried to trust you over and over again. Who was it that kept betraying that trust? After repeatedly betraying us, do you really think I can trust you now when you say you want to join hands again?
"But I really am sorry. We won't make those mistakes again. Please, forgive us. Trust us, please."
After all these times you've betrayed us, you have the nerve to ask for trust now? Reflect on your actions properly, will you? Maybe we spoiled you too much, but we really thought of you as family. It seems you didn't feel the same. When I said that, Laura seemed to panic and quickly tried to correct herself.
"But we are family, aren't we? Don't say such harsh things. Families should help each other out in tough times, right?"
Both David and Laura are now playing the family card. They never acted like family before. Now that they're in trouble, they suddenly want to be treated as family. How convenient. I have no intention of helping you. Look elsewhere and don't contact me again. We're estranged after all, I said and hung up the phone. Despite the phone ringing incessantly afterward, I deleted their contact to ensure they couldn't reach me again. Eventually, David and Laura fell into financial hardship and ended up divorcing after a marriage filled with constant arguments. Already burdened with debt, Laura had to return to her parents' home where her parents covered the debts. And now she's working tirelessly. David sought my help again, but I refused. Now he works a day job and does construction work at night to manage his debt and living expenses. With the ties to David and Laura cut and my husband gone, I have no family left. Living alone does bring loneliness at times, but it feels somewhat better compared to the days of being continuously betrayed by them. Whether my actions were in line with my husband's wishes is uncertain, but I feel considerably relieved. My husband was a truly admirable person, and as the wife of such a man, I want to live up to being a worthy spouse until the end, trying my best in my own way.